Hey everybody, I'm Dave Sandell.
And I'm Caleb Gardner.
And this is the Best Album For podcast, a podcast where we talk about the best album for elevating a backyard barbecue. Caleb, how are you?
I'm good. I feel like the weather has finally gotten into barbecue season here in Chicago, so I'm feeling it. We were having drinks out in the patio tonight, and it was really nice.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
We've done at least 3 already.
Nice.
Not like hosted necessarily, but have either been to or hosted. Three little barbecues in somebody's backyard.
Yeah. I mean, I was just talking about me and my wife, so we hosted ourselves, but that works too.
You have a big enough family that counts.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Although we did try to get away from the kids when we do that kind of thing. We're like, okay, just keep playing. We're going to go outside and have a drink.
When you guys go out on the deck, do you care what music is played? Like, do you curate it the same way you would if you had guests over?
Yes. Do you? Don't you?
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
I get distracted if the music's bad. Caroline knows this. Like, if there is bad music playing in the background, this is so apropos to this week's topic, because if there is overly bad music in the background, I will just be like, oh God, I can't stand this. We can't listen to this. If there's overly good music, I'll just be like, no, shh, I have to hear this. Do you know what I mean? I'll be like, shh. But that's how I get with some music, where I'm just like, I start singing along and I just start getting into it. And Caroline's like, I've lost you. So we have to find a sweet spot between, I really enjoy this, but also I have to enjoy it in just enough to still make it background music.
Do you and Caroline have enough overlapping tastes that more or less anything you want to put on will be fine?
I am going to say something somewhat controversial for a music podcast, and that is that my wife's taste is my taste. She is, for a long time, this was actually a pretty contentious thing when we first started dating. She was like, I don't know, I'm not that into music. And I was like, what? And I would try to talk to her, be like, do you like this album? And she's like, I don't know, I don't really want to talk about it. She was so weird about it.
Yeah.
And I kid you not, like, I was like, can I be with someone like this? And, obviously we've been together a long time now, but a few years back, I want to say it was like 2018, like not that long ago, she was like, you know what? Someone told me I should be into music. I think I should start listening to music more. And I was like, shut the fuck up. Was it you? What are you talking about? Yeah. Yeah. My wife has a history of hearing things from a third party that I've told her repeatedly and then believing them from a third party and not believing them from me.
That's pretty normal.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty normal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I think it was like a coworker or something. It doesn't matter. The point is, she came to me and said, will you make me a playlist? And I was like, I've been waiting a long time for this.
Ah, nice. So she went to you for...
I will.
She went to you for that service. She didn't go to her friend who suggested that. She went to you.
Yep. And I'm gonna tell you, I made her I almost said a mixtape, a mixed playlist. Oh, it's kind of sad we can't call them mixtapes anymore. Called For Caroline Volume 1. And we are now at Volume 27. I've made her...
That's pretty impressive.
Yes. So, and it's all new music. So I just make her, when new music comes out that I think she's going to like, I'll make her a playlist of that music and then send it to her. And she ends up like playing it in her classroom. She's a teacher. She ends up playing in her classroom, all this. So then, she...
So all
and she tells me, she's like, oh, I didn't like this or I liked this. But she pretty much just like trusts my taste.
So
but
like
I do,
all hardcore gangster rap.
Well, that's what I was going to say is there's obviously a Venn diagram of what I know she's going to like and what I actually like. And my, Venn, what is it? Are they separate Venns? How does that work? My bubble? What is that?
I think Venn is a person. Isn't Venn a person?
I like the idea of thinking that it's a couple of Venns that have come together.
A couple of Venn. Multiple Venns.
Multiple Venns.
Wow.
My Venn is significantly bigger than her Venn. So I find the sweet spot when there's overlap. I like a lot more things than she does. Full stop. Yeah. That's all I'm saying.
That makes sense. So whatever you put on, you sort of have a sense that if I like this and it sort of sits in the Venn diagram, you're fine. She doesn't request music. Specific music.
Anymore. But she does still expect me to be making her playlists and like sending them to her. She'll be like, after a while, she'll be like, hey, you haven't sent me a new playlist in a while,
Yeah.
So.
We got together when we were young enough where I don't think either of us had iPods yet. And so maybe I had an iPod. It's possible I had an iPod. But I definitely was making her mix CDs when we first started dating.
Wow.
And I tried to fill it mostly with music I thought she would like, and then just push it a little bit. Like, here's a bunch of music I think you'll like, and then here's like 2 songs that I really like. That kind of seems just left of the Venn diagram.
Oh my
just
God.
Left of the overlap.
I do the exact same thing. I'm just gonna push you a little bit in this area. I think you might, you just gave it a try.
That's like she's never had a Chemical Brothers mix from me, but she's definitely had like some Radiohead dropped in there.
Yeah, same. Also, I love that like I would have made my wife CDs if again she had started out not being weird about music and eventually coming around. But also I love that every episode of this podcast we find a new way to date ourselves. That's the CD mixes. That's the way we're doing it this time.
Yeah. CD mixtapes, CD mixes? Mixed CDs? Mixed CDs.
Mixed CDs, yeah.
Mixed CDs were an art form because there was still a finite amount of time. They didn't have like the fun part of the mixtapes, the cassettes that I made when I was younger, where there was a flip side, there's an A side and a B side, and you had to be thoughtful about 2, cascades and
I made mini and mix CD in my day for sure.
Yeah.
Both for myself, like building a mix of different like stuff from my collection, but also for other people.
Mine, unfortunately, were mostly for myself. I want to pretend that they were for other people because it sounds more romantic, but the reality is, oh boy. Did you have? Gosh, we are so far away from the backyard barbecues. I'm just gonna go with it. Did you have an experience in college where you might have been too old already? Where like burning CDs was very new, and like Napster was very new when I went to college, and so people would charge you money. Like people made real money. Like I would pay somebody 10, like 15, $20 for them to create a mix of songs for me, and I would tell them which songs I wanted, and it was like, hey, download these because I just didn't want to buy 20 CDs if I could pay somebody $20 to give me those 20 songs that I actually wanted. I think I only did that once or twice, and then I thought this is an absolute waste of money. I should just get my own CD burner.
Yeah.
Is the statute of limitations long enough that I can confess all this stuff?
Open yourself up to liability? I don't know, maybe. No, I didn't do that, but the thing that I did that was also very illegal was definitely like download entire albums off of Napster and burn them to CDs and just basically completely steal the music. I'm ashamed to say the only album I remember doing that for that I ended up listening to a lot was the Postal Service. And I'm kind of sad now that I didn't like give them money. They were so good. I was a broke college student. I'm sorry, Ben Gibbard. I'm sorry.
He's fine. I promise.
I'll make it up to you on this anniversary tour you're doing.
Yeah, man. Riot Fest.
Yeah.
All right. So we have so much ground to cover when it comes to backyard barbecues. I have like 1,000 questions to throw at you for how you think about backyard barbecues. That I think we should just jump in. But we want to give the caveat up front that for the most part we will be making playlists. Like most of my barbecues. Like things that I'm putting together would be playlists and possibly even just a collection of songs that I hit shuffle on. I don't know that I'd have them in some natural order, but I definitely for this exercise considered like what album would I put on in its entirety to elevate a backyard barbecue. And I thought we could just start there. Like what do you think of when you hear the phrase elevate a backyard barbecue?
Yeah, I mean, I think of and I've thought of in this exercise, what would I want to play that hits that sweet spot of I'm enjoying this music, the people around me are enjoying it, it's good quality, I really like this record, but it is not so good that I'm distracted and I'm in that desperado, we have to listen to this moment, Like I feel like the music we recorded, we were talking last week, and both the albums made it into our canon. Neither of those are going in a backyard barbecue for lots of reasons, but a lot of it is because we love it so much, it's hard to engage with the conversation and engage with the barbecue. So for me, it was about finding that sweet spot of, I love this album, this is great, this is fun. It's not like dour or sad. Obviously, if you're like trying to keep an upbeat mood at a barbecue, you want something that's somewhat, fun, but also, again, not so fun that it's distracting.
I might have hit so fun that it's distracting this week. We'll see.
Okay.
We'll see.
Fair enough.
Who's your target audience when you're making your music for your barbecues?
Oh, good question. I mean, I guess I considered like my peers, like thinking of like having other families over, other adults around my age. Who are you thinking?
Well, I guess my question was, so for me, when I think about elevating a backyard barbecue, it feels a little different. We had talked about maybe going with a topic like impressing music lovers at your backyard barbecue, but this feels like more wider than that, like more broad than that, where I want the room, or the yard, as it were, to be moved by the music, or for the music to do something to the space that we're in, that supplements or complements the thing, like the space that we're trying to create for that evening. And so when I think about my target audience for that, I start wondering things like, should I or should I not have music that people recognize? Like, is it fun to drop some songs in the mix that people will stop and like hum and tap along to and be happy that they're hearing? Like, I think when we we were at a block party last summer and they asked me to do the music for it, and I just filled it with songs that people knew because that felt really fun, but it was such a big, that was a whole block. It was a very different environment than our backyard.
You took the DJ approach, which is I'm going to play crowd pleasers.
Absolutely. And it was great. It worked. People were very happy to be hearing, Bone Thugs and Harmony followed by, Robin.
Yes.
Like it was a very wonderful night or day. But the idea of like everybody coming over to my house and sitting in my backyard feels more intimate. And so it feels like somehow different than just putting a bunch of songs on a playlist that I know everybody's going to know. And it actually feels more helpful to do the thing you're talking about, which is maybe fill it with songs that people don't necessarily know, or album tracks from albums that people would know. Like, I would probably put a bunch of Cure songs on a backyard barbecue list, but not Just Like Heaven, and not like Close to Me. I would pick some deeper cuts than that.
Yeah.
So I think my target audience is a normal like I think it's almost like my wife or your wife. Like, I think it's the people who I know aren't necessarily going to be listening for what's going on, but I know that music affects everybody, and so I have sort of this idea that I want everybody to enjoy that experience, but I'm not necessarily making it for one specific person, or I should say, I'm not making it for a music lover. If I am curating a backyard barbecue playlist and you're coming, I'm making it for you, and that feels very different than like, if it's just people that we're like kind of friends with, where I'm not trying to impress anybody. Then you get back to
the making it for music lovers, right?
Yeah, right.
Which when you say that, I get a picture in my head of we're all like standing around a fire, but then someone moves back and it's actually just a stereo, and we're just standing around it, listening to music, going, "Oh yeah, this is great," or Bone Thugs, yes, awesome. Which honestly, if you made a playlist full of crowd pleasers, I think that's what my brain would do. Just like every new song that came on, I'd be like, "Oh yeah, this song, I haven't heard this in forever," and it's just like focusing on the background instead of the person I'm talking to. Which is kind of why I went the like find the right vibes route, I think is what I would call it. Like, you find the right vibes, but it's not necessarily some like sing along kind of music.
Do you want the music to catch people's ear, or do you want them to barely be aware of it?
I think I want a little more the latter, where it's like, again, I'm imagining, you are a chef and you are creating an experience, and you don't want, part of that experience is the atmosphere, part of it is the people, part of it is the music, and you don't want any of those to necessarily stand out in a way that ruins the others, right? Yeah. Like, you want the flavors balanced. And so I'm kind of looking at the music in this scenario as, you still want it to be good. You want people to walk away talking about they've been a great experience. Wasn't the, I'm obviously not a chef, I was like, wasn't the garlic on this, I don't know, I was eating. delicious.
That you couldn't come up with delicious? That's the thing you were struggling with?
I was like, wasn't the garlic on this? That I just mumbled through the dish. Like, I don't know. What? I can't think of anything. But my point is, you could still like have enjoyed it and still like see it as, part of the overall experience, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I could see that. I think that I do want it to catch people's ear, though, or at least occasionally. Like, I occasionally want somebody to Shazam something. Like, I just have a desire to introduce somebody to something new. So there's this song that I put on my playlist specifically so I can count how many people ask about it or Shazam it when it's playing. Like, because I know inevitably everybody, at least somebody in the room, if they haven't been there before, will hear it and say, well, this is cool. What is this? And that is Sodad by Cesaria Evora. Do you know this song?
I don't think so.
All right, so you need to come over, and I'm just gonna pop it in the playlist and not tell you about it, and see if it catches your ear. So it's
definitely. And I will say that having been to many a Dave Sandell hosted function, this often happens where I'm like, oh, what's this? Like where something does catch my ear that I haven't heard before.
Anyway, it's just a really, really lovely song that fits, nicely in with every other song you might want to have at a backyard barbecue. But it's just a little extra, like it's just a little surprising. It'll catch your ear, and so I try to find a couple songs like that to slip into the mix with the solely expressed purpose of drawing people's attention to them, not like taking over the barbecue, but I do selfishly and I guess somewhat arrogantly want somebody to notice the music.
Won't someone think of the music? This must have been a hard prompt then to try to do that, but have to do it across an entire album.
It was, except for I nailed it because I picked the best possible album. So I'm very happy with that. I mean, I think, I think it's helpful to know where I'm coming from. So I have like maybe 3 or 4 music curation experiences in my background that sort of informs everything I do from there. So the first is that I was a music director at our college radio station, KGRK, and The Jerk, KGRK at Northern Iowa. The second is that I was a club DJ for a minute and had the job of getting people on the dance floor and also getting people off the dance floor because we didn't want them to be there all night. We wanted them to go buy stuff at the bar and then come back. And so, come back to the dance floor. So we get them off the dance floor for a minute, but then make sure we got them back on. And so then there was this conference that I was essentially, hired is probably the wrong word because it was all volunteer, but I programmed the music for this like week-long conference that happened every year in Chicago. And my goal there was to have people like be grooving, like make sure that they were noticing the music, not in a way that like drew all their attention, but in a way that like elevated the experience and made sure that they felt like this is cool. Like, cause it was it was a Christian concert, it was a Jesus-y conference. And there's sort of this, history of these conferences just being filled with bad worship music.
God, yes.
And that's not what they wanted. They wanted something that was like, hey, look, we're actually like aware of our culture and aware of our place in our culture, and so my job was to create a playlist that reflected like the culture that we're trying to speak into. So I have these 3 or 4 different experiences that I just can't shake. And so when I'm thinking about curating music for something, I want people to pay attention. Although that brings me to my next thought, which is volume is a big thing. Like I sometimes 100%. Think I go too low. Like I have the volume fairly low on music at barbecues. And I've noticed that when I'm at other people's houses and they have it a little higher, I'm happier. Like I like it. But when they're at our place, I sometimes wonder if it's a little too loud. And so I end up turning it down just a smidge because I don't want to drown out the conversation. So what is your like ideal volume level?
This is a good question. I actually got a chance to test this out recently because we had people over at our house this weekend, and I had the album that I chose for today playing as a test run to see if it was, same thing. If it actually worked in this scenario. Yeah. I love that we both did that.
And I played your album too.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. So anyway, we had it playing off 2 speakers in 2 different rooms. And so I was kind of adjusting the volume of both. And one was in our entryway So it was like, I was like, oh, I can't have this one be too loud because we need to be greeting people. This is really like a key moment. We had never met these people. We were having our neighbors over. So it was like even more important that we can hear what they're saying. And then in the other room where we were going to have drinks, you know, I was like, I want it to be more of a party atmosphere. So I let it be a little louder. And then later in the night when we were sitting around talking, I thought the same thing. I was like, is this a little loud? Like, can everyone hear each other? Trying to be like a little conscious as a host, and so I turned it down a little bit. But I do like it to be, you know, feel energetic and feel kind of like a party atmosphere. So I kept it pretty loud.
Yeah. I feel like I need to turn my volume up a little bit next time. Sometimes I'm just like worried about the neighbors. I just don't want the neighbors to complain, or generally I don't want them to have a bad experience. It's probably more accurate. Like
that's fair.
Want our neighbors
we
to
do live in
a
big city, and we are in close quarters. Yes. Luckily, for this scenario, I was indoors, so didn't have to worry about it then.
When you are planning your playlist, is it important to you to hear songs that you love? Or are you thinking more about what are the songs that this crowd is going to like? Because for me, it's entirely what are the songs that this crowd is going to like. And I will actually shy away from some of my more quirky choices because I just think that they'll fall flat, or they might actually negatively affect the barbecue.
There's this amazing thing, I don't know if you've heard of it, called a Venn diagram. It was invented by a guy named Joe Venn. I like to find music that I love that I'm relatively confident the crowd will love too. I think it's the same. I feel like this is like a love language that you and I both express, which is the same thing where it's like, I want to share something that I care about with these people. I think they're going to enjoy this. You don't want it to be like the outer reaches of the things that you like, because it's less likely that they're going to love it too. You might be pushing them too far, too fast into something too experimental. But, you know, I think that there is a way to like show them something they haven't heard before, but still have a good chance of enjoying. I think that's what I do when I make playlists for my wife. It sounds like it's what you do when you make playlists for parties and such. I think we share that goal.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would love to know that the people coming over love the music I love, because I sure would love to play it in my backyard.
Well, that would be ideal. You know, like where your Venns are just overlapped. Your Venns are just circles at that point.
All right. So last question before we jump into our picks. Does the energy level of the barbecue, in your experience, ebb with the music, or does it have its own natural rhythm and the music just supplements it?
I ideally try to find music, both in a playlist form and in this case an album form, that has a general like consistent energy, so that the barbecue can kind of exist on top of it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
What about you?
I think that the barbecue ebbs with the music. I really think music does a lot of work. I think that you set the tone for what that's going to be like. Like if I'm hosting something in autumn, you know, my playlist is going to be filled with James Blake and Yola Tango.
Yes.
You know, and probably even more folksy, you know, like Angel Olsen or whoever. And where if I'm hosting a bunch of people over in the summertime, it's going to be stuff like my pick today. And so I think the music sets the tone, and maybe that's just because for me it does. Like I can't ignore it. Like if the music is, we were at a barbecue recently, you and I, and I told him that we were going to talk about this, and he said he's fine with it. Where I was kind of annoyed with the music for the most part. Like it was a lot of like Americana folky music, you know, Mumford and Sons type stuff. Yeah. Which is all fine. I don't have anything against that type of music at all. But that's all it was, you know, for the whole time we were there. And it was just variations on that style for, you know, 4 hours or whatever. And at no point was I not aware of the music. And at no point was I not annoyed with what we were listening to.
So in your mind, it wasn't that the music itself was bad. It was just not the right music for that occasion.
So here's the trick, though, is that I think I did have judgments that this music isn't very good. Like,
I know you did. I was there. I know you weren't gonna.
There was just better. I think it's one of those. I don't want to sit and poop on somebody's favorite music.
Don't yuck someone's yum. That's what we say to my kids.
That's right. And I genuinely believe that. I am not interested in like saying this music is bad. I just want to say that there were better versions of that music out there, and I wanted to curate a playlist for them, like in that same genre that they were living in that whole night, only with better versions of it. And because I couldn't ignore it, I assumed that nobody can ignore it. But I also know that everybody was having a great time at that barbecue, including me. So I'm sort of like, I'm testing my theory and wondering if I'm wrong. But I still think like the music, certainly the vibe of the music can kill a barbecue. Like if you're just playing a bunch of death metal, that's wrong. Or if you're playing a bunch of dour, dirgy, sad songs, that probably is wrong. But maybe there's a really large, maybe the Venn diagram here is quite large and quite overlapped. And it's just really the most extremes of any type of music that will kill it.
Counterpoint, maybe you had a great time at that barbecue because the company was awesome.
The company was so good.
Yeah. So
absolutely.
you were also just hanging out with great people, and it overcame the music. I don't know. I feel like the reason why I asked about the genre thing is because I do feel like you can. It can kind of feel like someone brought a goddamn pumpkin spice latte to a 4th of July barbecue. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Where you're
absolutely.
just like, there's a time and a place, and this is not it for this kind of music, right?
Right. And there might be a time and a place in your backyard for this kind of music, but it's not this, this week or this weather or whatever it is.
Right. Ooh, the weather. Interesting joke. Yeah. Anyway, we should probably get to what we actually chose. I'm interested I think
you're right.
After all this build up, what did you end up choosing?
All right. So I chose an album that I'm guessing most people haven't heard. I mean, it was hugely critically acclaimed, but I would guess that at least most people in my circle have not spent any time with this album. That is an album called "Since I Left You" by the Avalanches. It was made in Australia in the late 90s and early 2000s and reached America, I believe, in 2001, after blowing up in Australia. And this album is just a vibe the whole way through. It's pure fun, pure joy. Do you know DJ Shadow at all?
Yeah, a little bit.
So DJ Shadow has this really storied album called Introducing, where he pulled probably thousands, but at least hundreds of different samples from different records, all of them obscure, and built this really beautiful, gorgeous music out of it. And every single sound that you're hearing on that record is a sample. He just went crate digging for a decade and came up with this music. And my assumption is in the beginning being inspired by it to shape it, but then ultimately he had the shape of it and was just looking for more things that would elevate each individual track. And this album is the same thing. It's pure samples all the way through. There's something like 3,500 samples on this record.
Whoa.
From vastly different extremes. And one of the things that's so fun about this record is that you can go to every corner of the world at certain points in this album, and they're all overlapping with stuff that is a little bit not necessarily the opposite, but it's just they're really distant vibes. They'll have something that's Caribbean music, and then they'll have video game sounds over it, and they'll have some sort of hip hop piece and then some folk rock piece that are all melding together. But there's not just two of them. It's not like Girl Talk where there's two. I'm gonna drop a bunch of names that half of you don't know what I'm talking about, but it's not mashups. It's not mashups where it's this track with this person's music or this person's lyrics over it. But it's all constructed out of tons of different samples to make something new. And the whole record is just so fun, and there's so much soul and R&B and folk and just different types of music that I love listening to, and it's so expertly, perfectly crafted that it just kind of takes you through right around an hour of this sort of journey where every song flows into the next and every sample flows into the next, and I find that it's pretty easy to ignore. It's enough. It sounds just enough like the music in The Gap that you can kind of ignore it, but it's so good. If you sit down and listen to it, you will be blown away. So it's not like listening to the album Leaf. album leaf is fine for what it is, but it's, you're not listening to the album leaf where it's like this vibe for the same for an hour and it's all chill and whatever. Like it's like, this is big music. Like they were inspired by Chemical Brothers and other people. And they said in some interview that, they couldn't match the big drums and big beats of what was happening in electronica in the late 90s. So they decided to do something completely different and just focus on a different styles of music coming together to build something really, really fun. So I don't really know necessarily how deep to go on this record that half of you haven't heard. But I find that when I put this on at barbecues, you can't help but not have fun. And your ears perk up a little bit because there's just constant samples coming, and you will eventually hear something that you recognize. You will eventually, pull like Madonna's Holiday, or you'll pull something that you have in there somewhere, and it'll catch, and you'll hear the music for a little bit, and you'll groove with it, and then you'll go back to your conversation. It's fine. It doesn't have to be like the soundtrack to the entire night where it's a montage, but it's just amazing underneath it.
That you picked an album that has samples of what you talked about doing earlier with your playlist, which is like having the kind of crowd pleasers mixed in to that would keep the party going. You're saying like they did this, but with an album with samples and layering.
Now there are caveats to this record. One is that there's a couple moments, like every album like this, where everything comes crashing to a halt and it's suddenly a cacophony of noise. Yes. I find that when I put that piece on, I sometimes dip the volume down, skip it a little bit, and then bring it back up. There's also...
Do you know that's coming? Like, are you paying enough 100%. Attention to where it is?
I just never lose track of the music.
So like mid-conversation, you're like pulling out your phone, being like, I'm just going to turn this down.
Sometimes I miss it, and then, I like hear it in the background. I'm like, I'm going to skip forward a little bit here. But you have to do that subtly. You can't just press pause. You can't just skip it to the next track because it'll disrupt the flow, and you'll affect the vibe of the barbecue in the wrong way. The other piece is that there are a couple moments in this record where they're building some kind of vocal narrative by sampling tons of different, I think there's like 30 some samples. There's this track called, what is it called? Frontier Psychiatrist. That at the beginning of it pulls in like all these different samples from TV shows and movies and just really, really obscure stuff to build sort of this new narrative. And it's really funny if you like sit down and listen to it. But it is almost like a skit. And I sometimes struggle with like, thinking of, one of the things I thought about for this exercise was like an Outkast album. Or some of those like 90s hip hop albums that do this same thing where it's fun and it keeps the vibe going. But there's so many skits and the skits just don't work in like backyard barbecue form. And so I sometimes wonder like if I have the volume up a little bit too high and it goes into sort of this skit mode, what happens? But there's enough music underneath it that I think it keeps going.
Oh, good follow-up question. Would you ever cheat and create a playlist from that album without the skits?
Well, the skits are integrated, so it's not like one track is skit.
It might be awkward. It might be awkward. But I love your premise that like if you skip part of a song, it's gonna change the vibe of the entire party. I just don't think that's true. I think you and I would notice because we're audiophiles and we're constantly paying attention to what's being played and like just in general for me like the noise and like background noise, like I'm just very sensitive to it. But I think most people are gonna just not even care.
I 100% agree, except for I feel like the person that I'm creating this for is paying attention. Like as much as I do want to please everybody, I guess my target audience is like Caroline's, like, she isn't like a huge music lover, so I want to like make sure that the music I'm playing won't be like weird and out there. But I do care more about the people in the audience who will notice if I just suddenly skip a track halfway through. Like those are the people that I am designing for, I guess, when I'm creating these playlists. And I guess I should say, like, there's a time of the year where I do play full albums, and sometimes that happens at barbecues, and sometimes that happens in fall ones, especially where I am putting on just full albums and letting that groove go for a while. I think it's awkward. I think it's super awkward when something swifts. I mean, it's not going to like ruin the night. It's not like people are going to storm out, but I do think it matters.
I'm imagining like you skip a song halfway through and someone like throws their drinks like this is bullshit. leaves the party.
Rots flying. Yeah. So you've never heard this record before, is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
So what was
Not
your
until
experience?
you sent it to me.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right. What was your experience listening to this?
I feel like I am never been into as like electronic atmospheric kind of stuff as you have been. In fact, I feel like you and I going these different directions are kind of quintessential our tastes a little bit. In terms of me going a more like indie rock, indie pop way. So I'm still sitting with it since you sent it to me just a couple days ago, but I enjoyed it. From what I heard so far, I had it playing in the background a couple times, like when I was working and when we were around the house, and so far so good. Nice. I don't know if that's a ringing endorsement, but it's a couple days in. You know what,
man? If you're not into the genre, then so far so good is a great ringing endorsement. Like that's that's high praise. Since it's not really your vibe. Yeah. Do you feel like if you heard this at a barbecue, you'd be into it, or you'd be like,
ooh, good question. I think I would want to know what it is for sure. I mean, but again, I feel like we always want to know what things are in general.
Sure.
I think if it was your party, I would definitely want to know what it is, because I feel like you, even before this podcast, I would know that you had picked it like very intentionally.
Sure.
So I'd want to know the background story.
When was the last time you Shazammed something?
Oh, recently. I think we were... where were we? We might have been either at an event like somebody's barbecue, or it was someplace public. I think we were at a restaurant or something, and something came on. Oh yes, we were at Ramen San in Lincoln Park having lunch one random day, me and my wife.
Yeah.
And they pretty consistently play like 90s hip hop there.
Oh, interesting.
90s, like early 2000s, like kind of around that. So, it's a lot of, like, Jay-Z, the Black Album, and, like, kind of, I think Black Album probably on the high end in terms of time, and then, like, Tupac on the low end, kind of 95 to 2005, kind of. Yeah. And so, obviously, that's my sweet spot. So, every song that's coming on, I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. I love this. And something came on that I didn't recognize, and I was like, what is this?
Nice.
So then I Shazammed it, of course.
Yeah. I was at a Vietnamese restaurant, Pho Pho Lim in Skokie, which is just a great restaurant. And there was like some sort of like electronic clickety track, clickety. I don't know how to describe these things, like telephone televiv style. For those of you who know what I'm talking about, that immediately made sense to you, and for everybody else, I apologize. But it was really beautiful, and I thought, I want to know what this is. And so I sat there with my phone out, listening. And then they told me what it was, and I was annoyed. I was annoyed with the answer. I was like, I didn't want it to be that.
What was the answer?
It was an Odessa song. I don't even remember pronouncing that right. It's like, Odessa's great. They're fine. They're wonderful. I was hoping to discover something new, and that's a very popular. Like, I think they were one of the headliners at Coachella this year. Like, that's not that interesting.
They're great. They're fine. They suck. Like,
no. They're good. They're good.
That like step down was hilarious.
I wanted it to be something obscure and new that I never would have encountered on my own, but that wasn't the case.
Yes. Yeah. I had that experience in an Uber once. I think it was in San Francisco. I was taking an Uber somewhere, and somebody had on this like very beautiful kind of experimental jazz, but like vocal jazz. And we were talking, and I almost always have my headphones in. I'm rarely actually talking to the Uber driver, but then I noticed that he was listening to this music, and I was like, what is this? And he was like, right? And we started talking about the music and discovered this, really great little jazz quartet that I'd never heard of.
Were you with me? Was it on the way to the Deftones concert where we were in an Uber and the music that was playing was that guy's band?
Was that on the way to the Deftones concert?
I don't know. I don't think I was by myself. I think I was with you. I think I was with you, and like it was not very good music, and he was really trying to sell us on this is his band, and if we want to check him out, here's his link on Spotify.
Oh my god, that's quite a hustle. Just drive people around, get one fan at a time.
Absolutely, that's what I'm gonna have to do. Best album.
That's what you're gonna have to do.
You reserve your Uber now.
Nice.
Tell me about your pick. I might come back and talk a little bit more about this, but tell me about your pick.
Yeah, I think this is so funny that we went in such opposite directions. So I picked something relatively recent that just came out, Late Developers, the album by Belle and Sebastian. I wish I could be content with the football score. Came out in January 2023, just after a bit of previous came out last year. So like within a year from a previous album. And this one's a lot more bright. It's a lot more... Honestly, like, it just evokes springtime to me, like that like it's very light and sunny in a way that not all Belle and Sebastian is. And it's funny because I don't necessarily go for Belle and Sebastian. They're not like a go-to band for me by any means.
Interesting. Okay.
I mean, you and I were just talking about going to Deftones like last week. We were talking about like Alt J and Radiohead. Like,
right.
You know, like I'm usually a little bit darker, a little bit more experimental, and Belle and Sebastian is often a little too poppy for me. But this album, for this purpose, just felt like it fit really well. I'd had this album on since it came out, just around the house. You know, like again, just kind of in the background, but like energetic, light, generally listenable. Like there isn't a you know sometimes there's an album that like 80% of it is just like flows, and then it gets to a track and then you're like across the room and you're like, oh god, we got here, I gotta go skip it, or you know, just if anything, it's just distracting. You know, it goes from again being kind of blending into the background to, oh, I'm in the middle of reading, or I'm in the middle of doing this other thing, and now I hear this track playing and now I'm distracted. And I didn't have that experience at all with this album. The many times I've listened to it, I wouldn't call it the best Belle and Sebastian that's ever come out, but it's infinitely listenable. And if my dinner party the other night, cocktails, whatever it was, proves anything, it's that we can put it on in the background and it's great background music and it works for this purpose.
All right, so I have a lot of questions.
Yeah.
The first is, what is your relationship with Belle and Sebastian?
I think they have put out many singles that I have very much enjoyed, and they've never necessarily nailed it with me with an album. So I've never been, again, if we're talking about just like put on a record and I can listen to this from start to finish, or even that's a record, even if I don't want to listen to it start to finish, that is like appealing to me and I want to go listen to a lot of this band, they've never necessarily they've been a playlist band for me. If we can have a genre of playlist bands, I think Belle and Sebastian has been that for me, for sure.
It's interesting because they have like 5 albums that are largely considered like Pantheon level records, like Sinister and Life Pursuit, and
people love them. Yeah, people love them. They've always been a little too, I don't know, like a little too kind of 60s pop vibe a little bit for me.
Yeah. So what is your relationship with 60s pop vibe? Because we grew up with a lot of Simon & Garfunkel and a lot of Beach Boys. Which I feel like, you know, they're definitely, you know,
sure, yeah,
more than inspired by it at certain points, probably whole cloth, you know, aping their music, not in a bad way at all. But do you generally like that kind of stuff?
If I want 60s pop, I'm just going to go for 60s pop. Like I'm going to put on, you know what I mean? Like I'm going to put on the Beach Boys, or I'm going to put on the Beatles, or whatever it is. So it's not that I don't like the genre, or even the like clear lineage of Belle and Sebastian from that music. Again, don't hate that at all. They have some great music out there. I've just never been, you know, a particular fanboy of them.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like I missed them. Like when they were becoming huge, I just missed them. Like I just had never really, it's weird because they were probably making music when I was a music director at a little college radio station, and it seems like
they've been making
it just
music
wasn't
a
my
long
genre.
Time.
Yeah, it just wasn't my genre, and I've sort of come around on folk music largely because of my wife. Like she really likes that kind of music, and so I find myself giving it more time. You know, I spend more time with records because I want to find things that she likes and find things that we can listen to together.
Same.
But I've always sort of thought of Belle and Sebastian as like, this is going to be weird. Maybe it won't be. I always thought the right space to listen to Belle and Sebastian was like an Ivy League school in your dorm on a spring day. Like, well, you and your girlfriend are like hanging out. Like, it feels like That is the Belle and Sebastian.
Specific and also privileged.
Like it's the college experience I thought I might have, but not so much.
You just described Vampire Weekend to me. Like that. I mean, that's absolutely what I imagine putting in that scenario. I lump
those guys together for sure. Vampire Weekend, Belle and Sebastian. People like are really nuts about Belle and Sebastian. I listen to their albums and I think I don't get it. Like guys don't. It's not bad music. I think it's great music. It's what's the word? Like, well, I'm gonna use the wrong word, but the avid loyalty, like the undying loyalty, that people have to this band, that just missed me completely, including one of my closest friends. Like he really loves Belle and Sebastian. I just couldn't, just totally missed me completely.
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, like, I don't know if Late Developers just hit me at the right time, like in terms of like music I was looking for with this kind of energy. Yeah. But I've probably put this on more than I've put on other Belle and Sebastian albums. And to me, it's not, again, not necessarily because it's better than any of the other ones. I think there's other ones, like you said, that can be considered from a pure artistic standpoint a lot better. But it's not asking a lot of you. And I think I was looking for that kind of vibe.
Interesting.
And I also to your point about trying to find things, when we were just talking about like me making playlists for Caroline, like I'm also kind of on the lookout of things we can share. And this was just such an easy one to like put on around the house and know it's going to be a crowd pleaser. No one's going to be upset. It's super easy to listen to, like it's just, you and I share a tendency to listen to music that demands attention.
That's
true, demands a lot lot of you. And this is not that.
This is not Eve Tumor. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly. It's not Eve Tumor. One track, another reason why I was attracted to this for this specific reason is some of the lyricism like speaks a little bit, I feel like, to like midlife crisis. Like there's this great the only lyric that really ends up standing out to me even on this album when you're like listening to it in the background is a lyric from a song called When We Were Very Young. That like the chorus says like, I wish I could be content with the football score. I wish I could be content with my daily chores. Like it's basically saying like everyday life can be kind of boring. And if there isn't a better, theme for having a, like, I'm imagining like a backyard barbecue in the suburbs. Like, come on. It's like subtly kind of digging at the people who are even doing this thing. And I kind of love it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I'm kind of with you that there are a lot of Belle and Sebastian songs that I love. I found that I really love Juliet Naked on this record. The first track.
You love the like one that has like a hint of sadness. I love that. That's what you pick out.
The tone of his guitar and just the melody of that song got me. I thought, okay, maybe I'm about to get the Belle and Sebastian album that's always eluded me. And then we got to the second song. I was like, no, it's fine. Nothing wrong with it. It's fine. It's just fine. Like this is such a like intensely fine music. Like it's just aggressively fine. Everything in their catalog is aggressively fine. Like people say they're twee, and I just barely get it. I'm like, it's not even like, I mean, and I actually like I like Tiger Milk a lot, and I like If You're Feeling Sinister. Like those are really good records, and I can listen to them in their entirety and find things to really like. But they're fine. Like they're not. I don't get it. I don't get the love.
Tiger Milk, I mean, and If You're Feeling Sinister, 1996. They've been making music for a long time.
It's kind of like in my head, they're like Hotel stuff.
Yeah, in my head, well, Nutrimilk Hotel in my head is still like a 90s band. My head, Belle and Sebastian feels like a mid-aughts indie band, or like maybe early aughts indie band, but like they're really not.
Yeah. And Life Pursuit is. I mean, I feel like Dear Catastrophe Waitress is, Boy with the Arab Strap. Those are all mid-aughts, right? Like those are huge albums by that band that I think, if I'm not mistaken, pulled people to their back catalog more than their back catalog. My understanding is even Tiger Milk was not available, right? Like it was an independent release that was basically out of print for a really, really long time. And it wasn't until later that people actually got to hear it. Yeah, I kind of lump these guys in with, that like college radio thing. Like they're kind of doing what REM was doing in the 80s.
Right.
Which I love REM, and the REM stuff in the 80s just doesn't do it for me. And I sometimes feel like, like I'm going to lose some street cred for that, but just, I don't know. They're just aggressively
So you need
fine.
Belle and Sebastian to be more mainstream? Is that what you just said?
No. I just don't get it. This is the most negative I've been about something since Poison. I just just don't get it.
Oh, this occasionally happens to us though, where like we will listen to something that like the other one loves, and we will just be like, nope, just not clicking. I don't know what it is. Like, yeah.
I guess when I listen to Since I Left You, there's the opening track kind of bleeds into the second track, and there's this key change that happens in the second track. If it doesn't get you, if it doesn't like give you chills while you listen to it, then I don't know how to have a conversation. Like that is an amazing record. Wait. Is a little mind blowing.
I want to. So wait, hold on. Let's think about the implications for this. So you put this on during a barbecue, and you want everyone at the barbecue to get chills 10 minutes into the barbecue.
No, 6 minutes in. I want them. Well, first of all, I would never start with this record. This record is not a starting place. This is a work your way up to place. Like if you're at a pool party, then maybe you can start here. But this is this for a backyard barbecue is going to be the main event halfway through. The peak energy of the barbecue is when you play this.
But record. I'm saying like you want everyone to interrupt what they're doing so they can have chills.
Well, again, I think it's going to be too quiet and in the background. But if you are listening to it with headphones, that
so that moment only comes when you're like being intimate with the music, basically.
I get so. That. I mean, I get
so. That. It's a different.
And there's just never a
sure.
moment like that for me with Belle and Sebastian. And I'm not saying that that should eliminate them from any conversation. I just don't understand the love. I don't get it. But, to each his own. I do have a bone to pick. This album was made in 2023, and it is your pick for best album for elevating a backyard barbecue. So there's not another album in history that you think is better than this one for elevating your backyard barbecue
scenario. For this specific scenario. Honestly, like finding that vibe of this is going to be fun the entire time. It's also not going to be distracting. It's going to be enjoyable. It's not. It's still a respectable band, quote unquote, that I can feel good about putting on.
Yes.
Like I just feel like that spectrum of like I'm going to enjoy it. The people there are going to enjoy it. It's going to be the right vibe. It's also not going to be distracting. It's not going to be too down. Like I feel like that was actually pretty hard to find that.
Okay.
And I think Belle and Sebastian generally meets that criteria mostly. But I think this album in particular, because it kind of came, I don't know if it's because it came off of this other one that was a little bit heavier, a little bit artsier, that like they just like wanted to have fun. It just comes off as like fun. And sometimes you don't want to overthink things, Dave.
You definitely didn't. You thought for 6 months.
That's right.
That was the most thinking.
Hey, I told you I tried it out. I said, I had a hypothesis. I went with it. I had a party.
Yeah. I respect the effort. I respect the work. You really did your due diligence on it. I will give you that. So I guess I'm going to ask, are you ready to put a 2023 record in your canon?
I don't think I am. I mean, I would probably not put anything by Belle and Sebastian in my canon for all the reasons we were just talking.
Fair.
They're a great band. No hate. Absolutely not. I actually get why people would really be into them. I'm just not one of them. I just don't think it kind of scratches that itch for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely not ready to put. I think this is it's been one of the albums I've enjoyed from 2023 the most, but not canon worthy.
It's been a strong year of music.
It has been a strong year of music. Yeah. But I feel like when I think of the strong year of music, I feel like some genres have been a lot stronger than others.
Yes.
I think that in this genre, I haven't found a lot that I've liked.
That's fair. There's been like 6 amazing R&B records and a couple other awesome things. But yeah,
amazing R&B records, some really great folk records. Indie, it's kind of been like, for the most part for me. I don't know. Yeah,
fair enough. Yeah. I think I would put Since I Left You in my canon. I'm hesitating only because I don't listen to it very often. Like it's definitely a like I was really happy to be listening to it a lot this week. But I don't necessarily know that I've listened to it much in the last few years. And they had a record a couple years ago, maybe even just last year. Was it 2022, 2021 maybe? Called We Will Always Love You 2020. That was one of my favorite records of that year, and I think I actually prefer that record to this one.
Interesting.
So I don't necessarily know that I'm putting Since I Left You in my canon, but it is right there on the edge, and I might later regret not giving it the ceremonial. What did we decide we were going to do? Like discovering the heart in Zelda.
That's right. Yeah.
No music today, no flowers, but
yeah.
But what a record, man.
So I guess that's a question about the canon criteria. Does a canon record have to be something that you listen to a lot, or that you have listened to a lot?
So when I look at because I rank everything, when I look at my top, 300 or whatever records, the point where I stop hitting records that I listen to on a regular basis is around number 81. I think everything before number 81 I listen to on a regular basis. And there's a lot of stuff between 81 and 100 that I love way more than this. And so the question I have is, when we think about our canon, how big is it? Because if I'm inducting 80 records, and this isn't one of them, that feels like too big. Like that's too big of a canon. I feel like a canon needs to be smaller. Like this is Apocrypha. This is really interesting music that I hope everybody listens to at one point just to get a taste of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think our canon should be at least 100 records.
Our shared or our personals?
Personals. I mean, there's a lot of music in the world.
But this would be outside of my 100 records.
I mean, that's okay. Then it's not in the canon.
Okay, not in the canon.
Yeah.
Sorry, Avalanches.
I mean, but to go back to the listens question.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that my canon, I'm thinking about music that at one point I listened to a lot, but I might not now.
Well, so that's different. That's a very different equation for me. Yeah. And the truth is that if I have to think about it in those terms, then Limp Bizkit goes in the canon, and they do not belong in my canon.
No.
So what are you saying?
Okay, exactly? Clarification. At one point you listened to it a lot, and if you put it on now, you would still be happy to listen to it.
Oh yeah, that's not Limp Bizkit.
Yeah. So that's what it should be. Is like, at one point this was on heavy rotation. It's not really on heavy rotation now, but occasionally I'll revisit it.
Yeah. Okay.
And
well, then
be happy and still enjoy it and still think it's great. Yeah.
Oh boy, this is a lot of pressure for a thing that doesn't matter one bit. And we're an hour into this, and nobody's listening at this point.
We have an entire podcast dedicated to this, Dave. It's very important.
This is a
public. This is basically a public service.
I agree. We need to get government funding quickly. Tell me about your honorable mentions.
Ooh, honorable mentions was tough for this one, because of all the things that I was just talking about. I definitely that I love some late 90s, early 2000s Counting Crows.
Yes.
There are some albums.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right?
Ooh,
even just saying that.
That might have been the right pick. There's no better place to listen to Counting Crows than a backyard barbecue.
That's what I'm saying. This Desert Life I thought would be awesome. However, I also This Desert Life is definitely my canon for those who are wondering. But if we were choosing the best road trip music, that's what I would reserve This Desert Life for.
Well, I'm looking forward to that conversation.
I have definitely tried that out in many a road trip, and it is a great, great, great song. Not to go down the rabbit hole of Miss Potter's Lullaby, just the driving, repetitive. Yeah. I could just imagine myself driving while listening to that.
We got to do that episode this summer.
Yeah, we should.
I want to talk about this record with you, and I know my pick for this record too. So
nice.
Or for that topic right away. Yeah,
perfect. So that was, but to your point, there's lots of Counting Crows albums that'd be great to put on during a barbecue, and would be super enjoyable. We'll have lots of differentiation in terms of the mood. People would enjoy it and recognize some of the songs, and would have been great. I also thought, I mean, we've talked many times about how I love Indigo D'Souza. She just consistently kind of hits a tone in almost every album that would be really fun at something like this. I veered a little bit away from her because, I'm imagining children at the barbecue.
Sure. I could
she
see
definitely goes for the language a little hard. Which again, in a way that I find really enjoyable, but people's kids won't. Those are some of my alternatives. What were yours?
My one that I most considered for this, actually there were probably two. So the first was Destroyers Kaput, which I don't know that you know very well, but that's like
Destroyers,
a yacht rock.
Thanks to you.
Yeah. So yacht rock, it's like a yacht rock album through the lens of Dan Behar, and it's just wonderful backyard barbecue music. You will not go wrong putting that album on, but his voice and his lyrics are so weird that I don't know that it belongs on everybody's backyard barbecue, but it does belong in my the backyard barbecue of my heart. Destroyer is playing
the backyard barbecue of my heart. That's great.
The other one that I really strongly considered was Lost in the Dream by The War on Drugs, which is also another great road trip album. Yes. And will be a runner-up on that episode as well. There are always a bridesmaid, never a bride when it comes to my personal tastes. But that record is, if we're going to talk about a starting place for my backyard barbecue, that might be the one. That might be a good first out of the gate. It has that kind of like Tom Petty quality.
100%.
Feels like summer. It just feels like summer when you listen to that record. It's such a great, just the tone of the record is so good. The mixing and mastering is so good and so specific.
I think that I have been to an outdoor event where they were playing The War on Drugs, because the minute you said that, I had this like nostalgia, like, yes, that's exactly the right answer. And I'm trying to remember where it was, but you were totally right about like having that summery feel, like atmospheric feel. Like, it's great. Yeah.
When I think about like sitting in my backyard, I don't drink beer, but sitting in my backyard with beer and a brat, The War on Drugs playing is pretty perfect. It's pretty awesome.
Maybe if you were beer and a brat in Brooklyn.
Yeah, there you go. And the last one is Sound and Color by Alabama Shakes. I thought Classic. That was a really great record for backyard barbecue. So if anybody wants to come over this summer, I will play these 4 or 5 albums in succession, and I'll toss in a little Miss Perfumado in there too.
I'm also almost positive I've heard Alabama Shakes at many a barbecue. Not recently, like when those albums came out. So yeah, good choices.
All right, man. This was good. Real quick, anything you're listening to this week?
Yeah. I have been putting on this is a very recent album that just came out, but it's super fun. The Answer Is Always Yes by Alex Lahey. Do you know this album?
I don't know this at all. No.
I mean, I think I stumbled upon it because Pitchfork recommended it, but it's just like alternative, super fun. Again, like not asking a lot, like great summer album, just really, really fun. What is it? You'll Never Get Your Money Back. Great breakup song. If you're looking for a great breakup song.
Yeah. Nice.
What are you listening to?
Check that out. I just realized I probably should have considered Spoon's Gaga Gaga for backyard barbecue. That would be an excellent record too.
Choice, yeah.
The only thing I've been listening to these 2 records that we picked a lot this week. The only thing I really made a lot of time for today, I got in the mood for Stone Temple Pilots, and I put on Tiny Music, Songs from the Vatican, and I just hadn't listened to it in years. And that is a very uneven album, but the highs are very high, and it's like all psychedelia rock and just really free and loose and fun. And it, of course, brought me right back to listening to that, as a kid, and just trying to put it in the situate it in their catalog and trying to understand, like, is this the same band? But 30, 40, however many years later, 30 years later, that is a great record. That was great fun to revisit today. So Tiny Music, man, good stuff. All right, man. Well, go ahead and leave us some feedback on what your pick for best album to elevate a backyard barbecue would be. Let us know what you thought of our picks. Feel free to tear them apart, or tell us how awesome we are. And of course, we're just getting started here, so we'd love if you have a minute, head over to Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening and leave us a 5-star review. Tell them how great we are. Pretend that we've been doing this for 10 years. Imagine how good this podcast is going to be in 10 years and leave a review for that podcast.
It's a public service, people. Remember that.
Public service. All right, buddy. I'll see you next week.